History is often seen as a series of linear events. But what if I told you that some historical facts can mess with our perception of time? Today, we're diving into a list of surprising moments in history that seem to defy the boundaries of time. Did you know that while Oxford University was already a thriving educational institution, the Aztec Empire was just beginning to rise? Founded around 1096, Oxford University is one of the oldest universities in the world. Meanwhile, the Aztec civilization, which flourished in Mesoamerica, didn't establish their capital, Tenochtitlan, until 1325. This overlap shows how two vastly different cultures, one centered on academic pursuit in Europe and the other on the development of a powerful empire in the Americas, were unfolding simultaneously. The fact that Oxford University was already educating scholars while the Aztecs were building their empire challenges our understanding of the chronological progression of history. Woolly mammoths, the iconic creatures of the Ice Age, are often thought of as prehistoric animals that existed long before human civilization. However, some populations of woolly mammoths were still alive on Wrangel Island in the Arctic until around 1650 BCE, nearly 1,000 years after the construction of the Great Pyramid of Giza. This surprising overlap shows that while the ancient Egyptians were constructing one of the most iconic monuments in history, a few thousand miles away, these giants of the Ice Age were still roaming the Earth. The coexistence of these two seemingly unrelated events in history is a reminder that the timelines of nature and human civilization are more intertwined than we might think. Cleopatra II, the last active ruler of the Ptolemaic Kingdom of Egypt, lived closer in time to the first moon landing than to the construction of the Great Pyramid of Giza. Cleopatra ruled Egypt from 51 to 30 BCE, while the Great Pyramid was completed around 2560 BCE. On the other hand, the Apollo 11 mission landed on the moon in 1969 CE. This means that Cleopatra's reign is separated from the moon landing by roughly 2,000 years, while the Great Pyramid predates her by over 2,500 years. This mind-bending fact challenges our perception of ancient history, illustrating just how vast the timeline of human civilization truly is. Anne Frank, the young Jewish girl whose diary became one of the most poignant accounts of the Holocaust, and Martin Luther King Jr., the iconic leader of the American Civil Rights Movement, were both born in the same year, 1929. While Anne Frank's life was tragically cut short during World War II, Martin Luther King Jr. went on to lead a movement that would change the course of history. The fact that they were contemporaries, born in the same year but leading vastly different lives, offers a unique perspective on the events of the 20th century. This connection between two of the most influential figures of the 20th century, one a symbol of the horrors of war, the other of the fight for justice, reminds us of the complex and intertwined nature of history. In 1977, the world was introduced to a galaxy far, far away with the release of the first Star Wars movie. That same year, France carried out its last execution by guillotine, a method of capital punishment that had been in use since the French Revolution. The fact that these two events, one symbolizing a leap forward in pop culture, the other a relic of a brutal past, occurred in the same year is a stark reminder of how history often contains surprising overlaps. The juxtaposition of these events highlights the contrast within our modern history, where remnants of the past can exist alongside groundbreaking moments in culture. The Eiffel Tower, one of the most recognizable landmarks in the world, was completed in 1889. In that same year, Vincent van Gogh painted his iconic masterpiece, Starry Night. These two events, one in the realm of architecture and the other in the world of art, both reflect the spirit of creativity and innovation that defined the late 19th century. The fact that these two iconic works were created simultaneously highlights the diversity of human achievement, with technological marvels and artistic genius coexisting and shaping our world. Some connections between historical events can be both surprising and unsettling. The Brooklyn Bridge, an iconic symbol of New York City, began construction in 1870 and was completed in 1883. Just a few years later, in 1889, Adolf Hitler, the future dictator of Nazi Germany, was born. These two events, one a triumph of engineering and the other the birth of one of history's most infamous figures, are separated by just a few short years. Now let's travel back to medieval Europe and Asia, where two iconic figures, one a structure and the other a conqueror, were making their mark on history. The Leaning Tower of Pisa, known for its famous tilt, was completed in 1372 after nearly 2 centuries of construction. Around the same time, Genghis Khan's successors were expanding the Mongol Empire, which would become the largest contiguous empire in history. The Leaning Tower, a symbol of architectural persistence despite its flaws, and the Mongol Empire, a symbol of relentless expansion and conquest, were both products of the same era. This overlap challenges our perception of these two worlds, one of cultural achievement in Europe, the other of military dominance in Asia. The connection between these two seemingly unrelated events reminds us that history is not isolated to one region or culture, but is a global phenomenon, with different civilizations rising and falling simultaneously. Sometimes historical figures who seem worlds apart were actually contemporaries. Take William Shakespeare, the legendary playwright, and Pocahontas, the Native American woman whose story became emblematic of early English-Native American relations. Shakespeare lived from 1564 to 1616, penning some of the most famous works in English literature. Pocahontas, born around 1596, became a key figure in the early interactions between the English settlers in Jamestown and the indigenous peoples of America. Their lives overlapped, yet they occupied completely different worlds, one in the theaters of London, the other in the wilderness of the New World. The coexistence of these two iconic figures from vastly different cultures highlights the diverse and interconnected nature of global history. In 1666, the Great Fire of London ravaged the city, leaving a lasting mark on its history and architecture. In the same year, across the Atlantic Ocean, Harvard University was founded, laying the groundwork for what would become one of the most prestigious educational institutions in the world. These seemingly unrelated events remind us that while one part of the world was grappling with devastation, another was sowing the seeds of knowledge and progress. History is a complex web where every thread is interwoven with another, creating a rich and intricate tapestry. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more fascinating history facts.